Hey everyone, welcome to another review. As always, my name is Jay, and yes, I have a problem with my left eye. That's okay. I'll be fine. Got some meds for it. Life is good. Not contagious. And today I'm going to be going over the new Apocalypse rules. I have the Apocalypse Field Manual right here. Classified. But that's okay. We're going to talk about it today. The new Apocalypse is coming out. It's now up for pre-order, as well as all the formations. Some of them have already been sold out, i.e. the Imperial Knight one that was good. But that's okay. Well, today we'll talk about the new Apocalypse. So, since basically Adepticon, the new Apocalypse has been hyped, and a lot of people were discussing, and GW of course said ahead of time, it's going to be a very different way of playing Apocalypse. Now, I played a few games of Apocalypse. I played several games of Apocalypse in the past, and it's okay. The problem is, it takes a long time to play. Excuse me. There we go. So, basically it takes a long time to play. It's like a whole day event. You bring tons of models, and most of your models are going to get blown off the table like turn 1 or 2. If you have a really scary model, prepare for it to die. Basically, my experience was it really relied on who went first. Whoever went first would have a really big advantage in Apocalypse, because they would just take out all the scary things that were potentially in the game turn 1, and yeah, like knock out a very large portion of the opponent's army. And then you'd be left with, whatever's left. But it was a fun game. It's for those who want to run, like 5,000, 10,000 points of models, and it's a good time. So they've decided to make a bunch of tweaks. Now, first of all, what I really do like about Apocalypse in this newest edition is it doesn't rely on 8th edition 40k. It is a separate game. It used to be that, if you wanted to play a normal game of 40k, you played 40k. If you wanted to play a small game of 40k, you played Kill Team. Or, what was the other one called? Forget what it was called. It's okay. Kill Team. And it was basically mini 40k. Or if you want to play Apocalypse, it was mega 40k. With rules of 40k, with large amounts of models. Yes. Now, some people had their own house rules. That's a different scenario. But yes, it was basically like a normal game of 40k. But with extra models, a couple extra rules. But it's basically 40k in a nutshell. And now, since Kill Team's come out, Kill Team's its own separate game as well. So Kill Team is its own separate game from 40k, and now Apocalypse is its own separate game from 40k, it's a completely different rule set, and all the data sheets, of course, for all the armies are online for free. Completely different set of rules. You don't need the 8th edition rulebook to play this game. You really don't. So it's a completely separate entity from 40k. In fact, it has a dynamic very similar to Kill Team. In the way that it plays is actually closer to Kill Team in several ways than to 40k now. And that way we'll be going over the new rules and some of the, just, the basics of this and what do I think. So as I said, I think it's very interesting. It's now a completely separate entity. Now, by reading the rules over a few times, I do think it'll lead to faster games. And also, it's going to prevent that whole, I put a nice model on the table and it's going to get destroyed turn 1 before doing anything. It may still get destroyed turn 1, but at least it'll get to do something. Because now everyone goes at the same time, like in Kill Team. Now it's based on initiative. You roll off at the beginning of a turn, you roll a d12, rolls higher, gets to go first on initiative, and therefore it goes I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, similar to Kill Team. So now if you have a really cool model in the backfield, it'll get to go regardless, but it might die turn 1, but it gets to go down in a blaze of glory, which is nice. There are a bunch of tokens, which we'll go over those later. Of course, there are missions as well in this book, and you play a variety of things. I just dropped something, that's okay. And as I said, missions, the armies, of course, you just choose your armies, you build formations, detachments, sorry. And the thing is about this one is all detachments act as if they're a single unit, basically. They move at the same time, they fire, they do everything at the same time. It's really nice that the whole detachment goes at the same time, so it is relatively quicker that way. You get to move a group of models at the same time. They all do the same thing, go, awesome. There are, of course, you say with the keywords and the units, as I said. Now the key is, though, in this one is coherency. If you have a model in a squad, so like a squad of Space Marine, Primaris Marines, they have to be within half an inch from each other. They basically have to be touching. They basically have to be touching. So what this means is they're going to be quicker. You're not going to be able to spread them all out, create a giant blob of Primaris Marines, maybe Orc Boys, but even still, it'll be a pretty tight-knit blob. You can't really do that stuff. They have to be in very strong coherency. Secondly, you have to nominate a commander at all times within an attachment. Now, if the commander gets killed in a detachment, you can nominate a new commander. You just go based on whoever has the highest leadership characteristic, and if two of them share, you get to choose one. But now the thing is, though, if your leader, if you have a model or unit more than 12 inches out away from the commander of that detachment, and they get a wound, they're basically dead. They're removed from play. So it's a huge problem if you have squads outside of coherency with your commander, so something to consider. Now, as I said, for each detachment, basically in the new game, you assign a commander. Now, if the commander has a character trait or character special rule, they're called a warlord. And you designate one warlord in your entire army as the war master, who gets additional rules on top of that. For every warlord in your army, you get to basically draw cards. And it's cool. You get to draw cards, and the cards you get to assign. Now, each army, you can choose up to 30 cards, and in this box set, there are 300 individual cards that you can choose and delegate into your army. Now, some of them are army-specific, but many of them are not. So you get to just choose a subset of 30 cards, and that's cool. The new turn phase, so what is it? That's the battlefield. Let's go over things. So, as I said, the command assets, they're the cards, and you get to nominate it for every commander. You get to designate a command asset. Interesting things. The battlefield, it designates the appropriate battle size depending on the size of the game. If it's 300 to 400 power levels, a 6x6 table. It should take up to 3 hours. 451 to 600 points, they recommend a 6x8 table, which should take up to 4 hours. To 750 points, which is a 6x10 table, 5 hours, up to 900 points, 6x12 table, 6 hours. So it'll still take a lot of time, but it should be more efficient, and that's the important part. Terrain features, again, you can put a bunch of terrain on. Deployment is based on, the scenario. Then you select you put your armies down, you select your commanders, your warlords, your war master, and then you prepare your command asset deck accordingly. You nominate your commanders. As I said, there's a warlord and the war master. The turn sequence is now hugely changed, and as I said, it's very similar. It's almost similar to Kill Team, than to 40K. So there's the initiative phase. Once again, you roll off. Whoever goes first gets to decide if they go first. The player who finished, and then that way, if the rolls are tied, then the player who did not have the initiative in the last turn has the initiative during this turn. So if you roll a tie, goes to the person who didn't have it last time. Now, if the rolls are tied and it's the first turn, where the player who finished deploying their army first gets to go first. Next is the orders phase. Now, in the orders phase, you go each detachment. So the orders phase is split up to 4 steps. First, the player marks any of the units that are out of command. Now, these are the ones that I said that finish more than 12 inches away from the commander in their detachment. That is a huge detriment in this edition. Then they set up the reinforcements. They then generate their command assets, which are drawing the cards. They then issue orders to their detachments. The orders phase then ends and the action phase begins. So first of all, out of command units. As I mentioned, each player places an out of command marker next to each unit. Each of their units in the battlefield is more than 12 inches away from the detachment's commander and does not already have an out of command marker next to it. Out of command units are in danger of being routed and removed from the battlefield. So basically, if they take a wound and it's unsaved, they're dead. They are removed from the battlefield and are completely, they call it, routed. That's amazing. That's huge. So if you leave an Imperial Knight outside of 12 inches, I don't know, maybe it doesn't apply to them. It's okay. Maybe not Imperial Knights, but it's still any other unit, basically. I think anything, they just go away. If you wound a unit that is more than 12 inches away from the commander, dead. And this is huge, because essentially you can focus on the commanders, right? You can, it's just -1 to hit, I believe, to take out a commander, and so you basically can force your opponent to dictate which models could be out of range. Now it does happen at the beginning of the phase, and you have to wound them near that part, but it's huge, right? They said if they get wounded and they roll an unsafe wound, they're routed and removed from the battlefield. Set up reinforcements, generate command assets, which is the cards. And then issue orders. Now, issue orders. This is cool. Both players secretly choose one order to be issued to each of their detachments and place the appropriate order marker face down next to the detachment's commander. Note that the detachment cannot be issued an order while the commander is in tactical reserves. Assets cannot be played during an action or while another command action is being resolved. So you can't use the cards while they're drawing or they're with command asset. the orders. So there's 3 orders. The first one's called Advance, which is pretty straightforward. It can make 1 move, action, and then after they've moved, they can either shoot or fight. Pretty standard, right? Next one, Aimed Fire. You don't move, but you get +1 to hit rolls with ranged weapons and -1 from hit rolls with melee weapons. Cool. And number 3, Assault. When the detachment carries out this order, each unit can make 1 move action, double each move characteristic, and then it can make it a fight action. So that's cool. Number 3, Action Phase. This is where everything happens. So this is where things shoot, things die. But sorry, things shoot. They don't die yet. Sorry, they shoot or they assault. So what happens is it's rolling to hit just as normal. Each model has a to hit roll. You roll a d6. You try to get equal to or greater than their hit roll. Now, if there are guns, for example, for the guns for the shooting phase, there are a lot of modifiers, but there's also things that are shooting against tanks and shooting against infantry, basically. There's a different stat for each one, and depending on what the gun's designed to do, it might be easier to hit tanks, it might be easier to hit infantry, or to wound, sorry, to wound. But as I said, so you move, shoot, fight. There's the minimum move, pile in, whatever. The shoot action, as I said. So you pick a target. First pick the enemy unit or units for the attacks. In order, you just fire, and by the way, you fire the whole squad's attacks at the same time. In order to target an enemy unit, it must be within range and visible to the firing unit. And units cannot target enemy units that are in base contact with any units from your army. The risk of hitting your troops is too great. This does not apply when targeting buildings, aircrafts, super heavies. Cool. And then, of course, characters. Some units are noted as being characters. Enemy light characters are obscure targets, so -1 to hit. Locked in combat. If you can actually lock things in combat in this edition, which is nice. Number of attacks, which is just in the the profile, and obscure targets is -1 to hit, as I said. So it's -1 to hit characters. The fight action, again, you pick targets. The number of attacks is already in the data sheet. So then you make your hit rolls. The hit rolls, you just roll a d6, and you have to get greater or equal to the thing hitted. Now the wound rolls are on d12s, and this is sort of where I was talking about that you need that weapons have strength against personnel, which is SAP, and strength against tanks, which is SAT. And each one requires a different roll on a d12 equal to or greater than equals a wound. Interesting. So now, you've moved, you've shot, you've assaulted. What happens next? After all the attacks are done, my turn, your turn, your turn, my turn, my turn, no, sorry, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, done. We're all done. Now it goes to the damage phase. So what's happened is, each time you make an attack and you make a wound, you place a damage marker near, a blast marker near the squad. Now there's 2 types of blast markers, a small blast and a large blast. So basically, if there's no small blast marker against the squad, you place a small blast. If there's already a small blast marker against the squad, you replace it with a large blast. So it goes small blast, upgraded to large blast. And then if you wound again, it would be small blast, upgrade, then next one upgraded to a large blast. And what happens with this is you roll a different dice for each small or large blast, trying to get equal to or greater than your armor. So let's take an Orc Boy. Now Orc Boys are higher than a d6. They're higher than a 6 armor save, which means that if you get a small blast against them, I have to roll a d12 and get equal or larger than their armor save, which is possible on a d12. However, since it's higher than a 6, if you put a large blast against them, you can't do anything. It just results in a wound, an unsaved wound. And then next is the damage phase. Now once again, damage is, first of all, you check if any unit routes. So if the unit does not have an out of command marker, proceed to the next step, which is making saving throws. But if it does, that unit is routed. Remove it from play. So as I said, if you get a wound, just a wound, against anything that is out of coherency with the commander of that detachment, it's gone. It's gone. And that is huge. That's a very easy way to get rid of a lot of models in your opponent's list. And that's going to lead to much quicker games. As you can see, you're just removing models from play. Oh my goodness, you got a wound against this guy who's out of range from my commander. He's gone. Just gone. Wow. Now, if he isn't out of range from his commander, you make saving throws. And as I said, you roll a d6 if it's a small blast. You roll a d12 if it's a large... Sorry, you roll a d12 if it's a small blast. You roll a d6 if it's a large blast. I hope I said that correct earlier. So for every small blast, you roll a d12. For every large blast, you roll a d6. If I said that wrong 2 minutes ago, that is my correction. And as I said, so if you get a large blast, you can't pass it. If you get a small blast, you possibly can pass it. If you're an orc boy, for example. And then, of course, you know, it counts as unsaved wounds. Any unmodified roll of 1 is always a fail. After making saving throws for each blast marker next to the unit, if the unit has not been destroyed, you will need to take a morale test for that unit. So once again, if it equals, you know, if the total number of wounds equals the total number of wounds for the squad, it's just removed from play. Makes sense. If it's super heavy, it explodes, possibly, and it can do damage to all the ones around it. Take a morale test. So once again, this is another way to get rid of the models in your opponent's army, is the morale test. So once again, take a morale test, roll a d6, and add the number of blast markers next to that unit. Small and large each count as 1. If the result is less than or equal to the unit's leadership, the test is just passed, nothing happens. An unmodified 1 is always a pass. Otherwise, the test has failed and 1 damage marker is placed next to that unit. This represents units fleeing the battlefield in terror, so basically gets them closer to death. And as I said, if the number of damage markers next to a unit equals the number of wounds characteristic, that unit is immediately destroyed, and remove it and all the markers next to it from the battlefield. If all units in a detachment are destroyed, that detachment is also said to be destroyed. Each time a super heavy unit is destroyed, the controlling player rolls a d12. On a 10+, that unit explodes, which is nasty. Place 1 blast marker next to every unit, excluding super heavy units that has been 6 inches of the destroyed unit before removing it from the battlefield. If the destroyed super heavy unit is a transport, units must attempt to disembark before these blast markers are being applied. Cool. And as I said, that's crazy. Now the next thing is, though, it's called critically damaged. If the number of damage markers next to a unit is equal to or more than half its wounds characteristics, equal to more than half its wound characteristics, sorry, it is critically damaged. Place 1 critically damaged marker next to the unit. This represents the casualties and battle damage that unit has suffered. While the unit is critically damaged, half its attacks characteristic, and subtract 1 from to hit rolls for any attacks it made with heavy weapons. Huge, right? Huge. It nerfs them pretty greatly. And that's it! And then you basically rinse and repeat. That is the turn sequence in a nutshell. So as I said, you roll off a d12. Whoever gets higher gets to go first. My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. And each turn, we then, first thing we do is orders phase, right? We mark the out-of-command units, we set up reinforcements, we generate command assets, issue orders, and then the action phase, right? And then so it goes that phase, and then it goes your turn, and then my turn again. Then it goes, right? So next, the initiative phase, we roll off. Then the orders phase, I go, then you go. And then the actions phase, I go, then you go. And then my favorite phase, of course, the final one, the damage phase, which is where hilarity ensues, and your models are just going to get removed from the table. As I said, if you just simply do a wound to something out of range of the commander, gone. That's huge, right? Again, they can run away, they can die. Plenty of ways to kill models, and that's the new theme. Like obviously, it's designed to go quicker. Much quicker for a game, and so there's a lot of ways to remove a model from the table versus the old way where you just had to blow them off the table literally, and that was the approach. So now there's actually missions where you can play and have a great time. There's objective markers. There, as I said, all the data sheets are already free. The detachments are pretty simple. It's all the same detachments as before, the same core detachments as you could take before. For 40K, they now apply to Apocalypse. And there's rules in here for like special rules like rapid fire weapons, anti-air, all the special rules that the guns can have. Supersonic for the vehicles. It has faction abilities. So for example, Space Marines, you can reroll your for Space Marines, I just guess you get to reroll your morale tests. Makes sense. There's War Master traits, as I said, to designate your War Master. There's a War Master trait. And there's tons of rules here for campaigns, special missions. One's called the Meat Grinder, I think is really hilarious. Everything just comes back in reserves, basically, that you kill, and it's hilarious. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that is a lot of stuff I'm not going to go over today, but just various ways to how to play Apocalypse. But yeah, and as I said, so basically, what do I think of this new edition? I like it. I think it's interesting. It's going to take a little bit of time to learn because it's one of those things that's going to be my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, and it's going to be fun. Now, it does prevent, as I said, from you putting a model on the table and it getting removed before doing anything. It'll get to shoot or do something, then it might be removed. You know, this series does not keep it alive turn one because it could have tons of blast markers against it, right? It just may not survive, but it'll get to do something before it dies. Cool. What will happen is the damage phase is just going to be brutal. Basically, obviously the main phase is going to be the shooting / assault phase, and then the orders phase, right? And then the actual events phase. But then the damage phase is going to be hilarious because you're just going to be removing points after points after points after points from the battlefield, right? Huge. And obviously, if your commander dies, you can just nominate a new commander, provide, you just go to the next highest leadership and go down the ladder there. You can basically knock out a whole detachment. And it's cool stuff. I really like it. I think it's really cool that it's now its own separate entity. It's not 40K 2.0. It's not 40K, on steroids and just take more models and have a very long 40K game. Because those the more points you add to a 40K game, the crazier it gets. Like, it gets super long, and this is at least a more efficient way of playing Apocalypse. I don't play a lot of Apocalypse, as you've seen by my battle reports. I played a few games. I don't play a lot. I like to keep games more efficient, but I think this is an answer to play faster. I should get one of my friends like Stu or Dave in some time to play a game of Apocalypse. I do have a bunch of Imperial Knights and Space Marines, and I can put an Imperial Soup list together. I also do have tons of Tyranid formations, and I have a Hierophant, so I have points there too. Yeah. So as I said, it's cool stuff. That's basically the new Apocalypse in a nutshell, and that's going to be my simplified version of a review. As I said, there are a few different objective markers. As I said, there's command markers which you place down. You put down the out of command markers and the commanders. There's the orders phase, which there's the 3 different orders, as I mentioned: double, move, and assault; stand still and shoot primarily, or you can stand still and assault, but it weakens your assault, or you can move and shoot or assault as normal. There's damage markers. There's blast markers and objective markers, and all of them come in with this amazing set, as well as this book. But that's it in a nutshell. As I said, the new phases we've gone over, the big changes, and obviously there's rule changes, and everything's the big changes as well as how things shoot. There's now there's now wounding against infantry. There's wounding against tanks. You roll a d12 for the wound roll, a d6 for the hit roll. All roll-offs are d12s. There's now a huge d12 aspect in this game, and I like that. It's cool that they've incorporated more than just d6s, but that's it. And obviously the detachments are basically the same detachments as in Warhammer 40K 8th edition. So, what do you think? Let's create a discussion in the section down below. What do you think of the new Apocalypse? Now out for pre-order, and as I said, I really wanted to order that Imperial Knights one. Already sold out. Probably won't be able to get it. It happens. But stay tuned for more reviews. What do you think about the new Apocalypse? Leave comments in the comment section down below. Let's create a discussion. And a huge thank you as always to my Patreon subscribers. It's because of them that I keep making these reviews. And stay tuned for more reviews. As you can see, their names go by my head. And if you want to help check out my Patreon campaign, link in the description below. It really does help a lot. So stay tuned for more videos. So next time, this is Jay saying, happy painting your Apocalypse models.